This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Microsoft Publisher. In this class, I'll be providing an overview of the Microsoft Publisher program. Okay, we'll be talking about some of the fundamentals of Publisher, okay, what it's basically designed to do. We'll go over the interface in Publisher, or the screen, to get acquainted with the lay of the land, the work area, the menu options, etc. And then we're going to perform a series of exercises to get us comfortable using Publisher and introduce us to some of the unique features that Publisher offers. Right now, just so you know, the version we're using in this class is Publisher 2019, which is one of the more recent versions of this application. As long as you have access to 2007 or later, you'll see that whatever you learn in this version can be easily applied to those other versions. Okay, so Publisher, we build publications with it, of course. Okay, so a question I get a lot is, can I just do that in Microsoft Word? Well, yes. Okay, so what I want to talk about before we get into Publisher is Word versus Publisher. Okay, and we'll look at 5 key differences, and you'll have a better understanding of what Word is really designed to do versus Publisher, what Publisher is designed to do. All right. So in Microsoft Word, it's better suited for documents like letters, resumes, and reports. Now we can use Word to build graphically rich documents, things like newsletters, flyers, etc. Okay. Okay, but Publisher is a bit better suited for those kinds of things that are graphically rich, because it comes with other features like built-in layout options and some other bells and whistles that kind of allow us to create those kind of graphically rich materials faster. In Word, you can design different layouts, but options are somewhat limited. In Publisher, you design more freely. So we kind of have more freedom in terms of where we place things in the work area. And like I said, we get those built-in layout options. In Microsoft Word, you start out with a text cursor. All right, now this is just a difference here. So you start out with a text cursor. In Publisher, you start out with an empty page, no cursor. So Microsoft Word, as you know, when we start a new document, we usually see that blinking insertion point, which means we're able to start typing. In Publisher, there's no blinking insertion point. That's because we don't type onto the page in Publisher. Okay, Publisher relies on the use of objects. If you're not familiar with objects, whenever you use Microsoft Office, whether it's Word, Publisher, Excel, or PowerPoint, these programs come with objects. Objects are those graphics that you can place on top of your work area, things like pictures, tables, text boxes, charts. Okay, so in Publisher, if we need text, we need a text box for the text. We don't type directly onto the page. In Microsoft Word, you work with continuous pages. So in Word, as you're typing down the page, as you're probably familiar with, once you reach the end, Word automatically gives you a page 2. You keep typing, you'll get a page 3, etc., etc. In Publisher, you work with individual pages. So if you want a new page, you have to insert it manually. Finally, in Microsoft Word, you can place items only on the page. Publisher gives you something called the scratch area, which is kind of the background area of the page, all right? And you're able to place items, objects there if you want to just kind of set them aside because you're not sure if you want to use them yet, or you can also keep them there, save your file, and they'll still be there in case you want to use them another time. Okay, so we kind of get that scratch area to play around with ideas. Again, Publisher just gives us a little more room to experiment, okay, and try different things. So in this class, we're going to be talking about some key Publisher features and tools. Now, we're not going to be only talking about these, but I want to go over a few important ones because they're kind of unique to Publisher. You won't find them necessarily in other Office applications. The first of which is layout type. Okay, so in our page design tab, as we'll see shortly, we can select from various layout types that are built in, and they save us a lot of work. So if we're trying to build, for instance, a card, a foldable card, we would have to figure out the dimensions, right? So that we know where to fold, make sure everything's aligned correctly, our margins are right. So these layout types that you need for these kinds of publications are already built in. You just select it, and then begin your work. Another key feature are ruler guides, okay? We can place several different guides on our screen so we can align things nicely and accurately, okay? They're not gonna be printed, but they will show up on the screen so that as you're placing objects, they're evenly spaced between each other and they're all aligned nicely with the margins and other related objects. Okay, kind of related to ruler guides, boundaries. In Publisher, when we place objects on the page, those objects will or won't have these kind of artificial boundaries. Again, they're not printed out, they just show up on the screen. It's good to know that boundaries are available to turn on because again, they're going to help you line things up correctly. Okay, another key feature, the picture placeholder. If you've ever used Microsoft Word, for example, and you've inserted a picture onto your document, you probably know that the picture is going to be some random size depending on the source of the picture. It could be way too big, it could be tiny. A picture placeholder allows us to set the size of the picture first, like a frame, and then insert the picture to conform to that size. Another key feature, as we just mentioned, is the scratch area. Again, this is the background area behind the page into which we can place objects and other things to kind of experiment with different ideas. The swap tool, okay? In this class, we're going to create an alternating pattern of pictures. So each row, the pictures will change their order. The swap tool allows you to select two pictures and quickly swap their positions in case you want to create something similar to that. And last but not least, the create link tool. All right, we're going to see a couple examples of this. You can link text boxes because remember, when we use Publisher, we have to use text boxes if we want text. And a problem we often have is that as we're typing in a text box, we run out of space at the bottom. So we can create another one, link it to that one so that it's kind of like one continuous text box, almost acting as different columns on the page. All right, again, we'll see create link a little bit later when we get to typing in some text. All right, so without further delay, let's go ahead and just get started. Now, for those of you here in person, there is an access point to Publisher down here in your Windows 10 taskbar, the green and white P. You can go ahead and click on it to launch the program. And for those of you attending virtually, if you have access to Publisher, you can go ahead and launch it now. All right, and I should mention that Publisher does not come with the home version of Office. So there's a good chance that you might not have access to this, but again, you could always at least watch the class and then consult the recording later to practice. And if you do eventually get access to Publisher, then you have something to work with. Okay, so when we launch Publisher, this is 2019, just like other Office programs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the first screen we come to is our template, our start screen. The start screen contains primarily a template gallery on the right. Remember that templates are those built-in, pre-designed, specific types of projects, in this case, specific types of publications, okay? And these are kind of important for Publisher because with Publisher, we're creating something that's very graphically rich, which typically takes more time than creating just a standard document. So templates can save you a lot of time, all right, because they give you a place to start. The publication's already designed. You just have to erase the generic or placeholding text that's there and put in your own unique text. Okay, of course, you can still customize the template. You can change pretty much everything about it. They just give you a place to start to save on time. But what we'll be doing today is building a publication from scratch, okay? Now, before we start our publication, just remember on the left side, you have that list of recent files that you've created and saved in this particular program. So in the case of Publisher here, if I had recently saved a new publication, it would show up in the list on the left here. I could click on it to begin working on it again. All right, so what we're gonna do now is, give me 1 second here, let me just consult my notes. Okay, sorry, so let's just start with a new publication. Just click on the first template that says blank 8.5 by 11. Okay, which means it's going to be in a portrait orientation, which of course we can change. We're just going to start here for now. Now I'm going to zoom in on mine a bit so you can see it better up front. And for those of you attending virtually, so you can see it better on your screen. All right, so this is a blank publication and publisher. And as you can see on our interface, we basically have three main areas. We have our main work area here where we are building the actual publication. On the left side is a pages navigation pane. All right, which will, as we add more pages, if we do, it's going to give us an overview of the entire publication page by page. And up above, we have the ribbon, which is that menu that holds all the commands and tools available to us in this program. Okay, so let's talk about this main work area for a minute. As you can see there, let's actually start. Okay, so first of all, as I mentioned earlier, we can't type directly onto the page in Publisher. Okay, there's no blinking insertion point. We just get an empty page here. Now, if I do start typing, words do show up, so it looks like I'm lying to you, but that's because if I start typing, notice the box, it's automatically inserting a text box once I start typing. Okay, so it's not actually on the page. As you can see, it's in a text box. So when we need to type into Publisher, we need a text box. I'm just deleting that now because I don't need it. Okay, another thing to note about this page are the blue margins that are clearly outlined. In Microsoft Word, your margins are hidden. Here in Publisher, they're clearly outlined because, again, we're using objects, which means we need to line things up correctly. We don't want to go into the margins necessarily. So they make sure the margins are clearly visible so that we can work, in the main area, not drift into the margins, and make sure everything's lined up nicely. Another difference between this work area and Word are the rulers. Okay, we get a horizontal ruler at the top of the screen and a vertical ruler on the left side here, which we get rulers in Word, but these rulers are different. Okay, first of all, they're a bit more detailed or granular. We get smaller increments. Also, the rulers span not across the page or above and underneath the page. That's because, remember, we could use this scratch area. So we might want to use the ruler there as well if we need to measure things or get dimensions just right. Okay, last but not least, another important thing to note, going to the left now, is that pages navigation pane. Let me just quickly insert a new page so you could just see. All right, so as I because remember, in Publisher, we need to insert pages as needed. So I've inserted a page 2, now I get a page 2 on the left. So this gives you an overview of the whole publication. And we can also use this if we need to reorder the sequence of our pages. We could just click and drag and move them around. Okay, so given all these little details I just discussed, okay, especially the pages navigation pane on the left, and the fact that we need to use objects to build the actual project, okay, we can't just type onto the page. Publisher actually operates much more similarly to PowerPoint than it does to Microsoft Word. Okay, because just like PowerPoint, like in PowerPoint, we need to insert new slides as needed. In Publisher, we need to insert new pages as needed. And we even get a similar view of slides and pages. We get a navigation pane on the left. Okay, and also like PowerPoint, like I said, you can't type directly onto the work area. We need a text box if we want text. Now, up above is that ribbon that holds all the tools available to us in this program. All right, so remember, when we use Office 2007 or later, the ribbon has a pretty consistent design amongst all these Office applications. The tools in the ribbon are organized by a series of tabs, starting with the Home tab, and then you have your Insert tab, Page Design, Mailings, Review, View, and Help. So as you click on a tab, you get a different set of tools for each tab. And remember that each tab is further broken down into more specific categories, and those categories are listed at the bottom of that tab left to right, and those are called groups. So for example, in the Home tab, I have a clipboard group, a font group, paragraph, styles, Objects, Arrange, and Editing group. So those groups are there to help you locate the command you need. And the pen I'm using, by the way, to draw is not part of Publisher. That's part of the GoToMeeting program I'm using for the virtual class. Also remember that in many of these groups, you have that access point to oftentimes additional commands that are not immediately available in the ribbon. Some of them aren't active yet because I haven't inserted anything. I'll use the clipboard group as a quick example. That little diagonal arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of that group, that's called the Dialog Box Launcher. If I click on that, it will launch a dialog box. Actually, this one's a little odd. Let me use this one in Page Design. Page Design tab, Page Setup group. Let's use this dialog box launcher because we're actually going to come back to this one shortly. It will launch a dialog box just like this. And in that dialog box, we often find the same tools that are in that group, but we also find additional tools in many cases that are not immediately available. So sometimes we prefer to use these, sometimes we have to use these. At the moment, however, I'm just going to cancel it to close it out. We're going to return to this dialog box shortly though. All right, now just a very, very brief overview of these tabs so you have an idea of what we're doing, of how this menu is organized. The Home tab, just like the Home tab in other Office programs, basically has your most basic and perhaps frequently used formatting tools. Things you'll find in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, okay? You have your clipboard group for cut, copy, and paste. You have your font group for formatting font, okay? Basic formatting tools like bold, italic, underline, font size, etc. You have your paragraph group for line and spacing and alignment, left, center, right. And then a few others. Now, Objects is a bit unique because that's something that's we only find in the Home tab in Publisher. And Objects, remember, are those things we need to insert on top of our work area to build it, to build text, pictures, tables, whatever. Okay. Now, the Insert tab is where all of the objects are found. This is just a small subset. The Insert tab is all the objects you can use in your publication. So when we go to start inserting things, we're going to go to our Insert tab, whether it's a text box, a picture, etc. All right, and a few things I'll point out in more detail as we start using them. So again, Insert tab, where you go to insert objects and pages, by the way. The Page Design tab, where you can go to quickly change the layout of your publication, whether it's something simple like the orientation or something more nuanced like the actual layout type, if you're creating a foldable card or something like that. Your Mailings tab has your mail merge features just like Word does. If you want to create batch letters or labels for envelopes, okay, Publisher has the same set of tools that you find in Word. Your Review tab, just a few tools to quickly review your publication for errors or maybe research, look up words to make sure you're using them correctly, things like that. Your View tab, some ways to quickly either change the view of your publication on the screen or add things to your view, a couple of which we'll be using shortly, okay, or at least one of which we'll be using shortly. And then the Help tab, just some help and support tools in case you have a question about something in Publisher. All right, so let me just delete this second page before I forget. I'm going to right click on it and select delete from this contextual menu. Okay, so what we are going to do in this class is we're going to create a folded card. I like to do a folded card because it's kind of one of the more complex ones given its layout. So if you could do this, you can really do any other type of publication. So the first thing we need to do, as this is a folded card, we're definitely gonna have to change the layout. Otherwise, it's just gonna print out as a sheet of paper, kind of like a Word document. That's not what we wanna do. And we certainly don't want to manually figure out the dimensions of the card in terms of where the lines should be to fold it, and make sure our margins are right, all those kinds of things. So as I said, Publisher just gives us several layout types, so we can just select that layout type and it will just do that work for us. So to get to our layout types, let's go up to our Page Design tab and click on it. Now, real quick, before we get to the layout types, I just want to point out on the left side of this tab is the template group. If you decide that you do in fact want to use the template at this point, you can click on Change Template and select one from the template gallery we saw before. Okay, so you can always change your mind. Or if you select a template and then decide you want a different template or you want a blank publication, again, you can make that decision after the fact if needed using this tool here. But what we're going to do is just change our layout type. So we're going to go to the Page Setup group, and we're going to click on the Dialog Box Launcher here, the little arrow in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, and you'll see right there layout type. Now, I just want to note, it says pages per sheet. This is kind of an important distinction to be aware of with Publisher. Okay, in fact, look down here, it says page size, paper size. So when we're talking about pages, there could be multiple pages on one sheet of paper, if that makes sense. Okay, so the page doesn't necessarily mean one piece of paper. It means how subdivisions of a piece of paper. So does that make sense, everybody? So pages versus sheets, okay? So let's go to layout type. Let's click on the drop down and select folded card. And you'll notice it's going to automatically build that layout for you. Okay, and you'll notice there it is again, that distinction, page size, paper size. It's still using an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but it's subdividing it into 4 quadrants, each of which is 4.25 by 5.5 inches in length and width, excuse me. And by the way, as you can see, it's one side of one sheet of paper, because when we fold it, that's all we're going to need. Now, we can kind of still modify that layout under options where it says sheet fold. Instead of quarter sheet side fold, you can do quarter sheet top fold, half sheet side fold, half sheet top fold. A typical card is going to be quarter sheet side fold, the default option. So let's just stick with that one and then click OK. Now it's going to ask you, do you want to automatically insert pages? Because we're going to need 4 pages total, right? A card has the front, 2 in the inside, and then the back. So we can insert them later. It will still maintain the layout, or we could just insert them all now. We may as well just do them now because we know we're going to need them, so just click yes. And then as you can see on your pages navigation pane, it's going to give you all 4 pages. 2 and 3 are side by side. You can separate them to view them individually. We'll get to that later. And as you can see right now, page 1 is selected. That's what we're looking at here. So this is the front of the card. And let me zoom in again a little bit on mine. If at any time you want to zoom, by the way, the quickest way to do that is to go down to your status bar, which is under the scroll bar here, and over to the right, you will see a zoom level. If you click and drag on that, you can zoom in or out as needed. And now, before we start building the publication, I want to add a few things. I want to add something to my view first. So I'm just looking real quick. Okay, so we want to, let's first, since we're still in the page design tab, let's stay here for a second. I want to add some rulers to my page. Now, sometimes I think this should be located in the view tab because we're just adding it to our view of the screen, not to the actual piece of paper, but they put it here in the page design tab. So in my opinion, it helps when you're building these kinds of publications to have a vertical center, or I'm sorry, this would be the horizontal center technically, and then a vertical center here, in case you want to keep things nice and centered. So we're going to add those 2 rulers. Now, it can be a little bit tricky, so I'll walk you through it. In the Page Design tab, you will see guides here in the Layout group. So let's click on Guides. And really, they're called ruler guides. Now, we're going to bypass all these built-in options. Just go down to where we see Add Horizontal Ruler Guide. You can go ahead and click on that. Now, there it is, okay? So a couple things. First of all, that's a horizontal ruler guide because it's running horizontally, but it's establishing the vertical center, okay? Horizontal ruler guide establishing the vertical center. Now, the tricky thing is that it's not necessarily centered because it kind of depends on where you are on the ruler. So in order to make it perfect, I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go back up to guides, and this time go down almost to the bottom and click on ruler guides. And in this little dialog box, we get two tabs, one for horizontal, one for vertical. So right now we're dealing with the horizontal ruler guide, and it's already filled in because that's the one we just added. Now, we have to do a little bit of math, okay? Because remember, we're not talking about an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. We're talking about a 4.25 by 5.5 page. So we need to establish the horizontal, or really the vertical center for that page, okay? So if our vertical dimension is 5.5, split that in half and you get 2.75. So click on clear to clear this ruler guide. We don't need it. Into that box, type in 2.75 and then click set here to set it. Now we're going to set up the vertical ruler guide, which is going to establish the horizontal center. So go up to that tab, click on vertical. Ruler guide position. So now we have 4.25 divided by 2 is 2.125. So type in 2.125 and then click set. And as you can see, you can add more ruler guides in both cases. You can add them all over the place. We just want to establish the centers. So that's what we've done. We'll click OK. And now we have the horizontal center and the vertical center. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to add to the screen are boundaries. Let's go to our View tab now. Sure. All right, so in our View tab, in the Show group right here, these are essentially things that you can add or take away, add to or take away from the screen. All right, they're just there in your view. They have no bearing on the printed copy. We do want to add boundaries, so click on the checkbox for boundaries. Now, what are boundaries? I'll show you really quick so you can understand why why I think they're so important. If I insert a text box, I'll just put text box 1 here. Okay. Without boundaries, well, there are no boundaries around it. Okay. Again, they're not borders. They're not going to be printed. They're just artificial boundaries we see on the screen. Without the boundaries, it's kind of hard to line up objects next to each other because I don't know where they end and begin, or begin and end, excuse me. Okay. So by adding the boundaries, which I'll do right now, they stay there as I click around. So I can kind of move things, align things nicely without crossing into each other and making sure everything's evenly spaced. So that's why we're adding the boundaries. Now I'm going to delete that text box because I don't need it at the moment. Yes. Yeah, we're going to come to that in a few minutes. Yep. All right, so now we can finally get to the more fun stuff. So let's start building the actual publication now that we're all set up to go. Actually, the first thing I want to do is, what we're going to do is we're going to do a birthday card, okay, for a kid's birthday. So we want this to be kind of fun, lighthearted. All right, so it might be good to color in the background and not use white, because after all, we're building a graphically rich publication. We should probably get a little bit more creative than just using a white piece of paper. So we want to fill in this page with a color. Now, just like other Office programs, whenever you're sort of changing the background of that page, okay, that's a design feature, which means we're embedding the color into the page. So we're going to go to our Page Design tab in the ribbon. So click on Page Design. And I'm saying this because any other Office program you use, when you want to change the background, it's going to be in its respective design tab. So we're in the Page Design tab. All the way to the right is the Page Background group. Let's click on Background. And we're going to bypass these built-in options. We'll go down to the bottom, click on More Backgrounds. And we get this little Format Background dialog box. As you can see, sometimes these dialog boxes some of them are a bit more modern in their look than the old-fashioned ones. It kind of depends on what you're using in the program. So in this Format Background dialog box, we get some fill options. Let's just keep it simple. We'll click on Solid Fill. We don't want to give it a picture or anything like that. And we'll just go over to Color and just change your color. And then we'll click OK. Now keep this transparency tool in mind. We might need it. Transparency allows you to adjust the sort of the presence of that color. You can fade it into the background more if it's too bold. For now, we'll just leave it as is. I'll click OK, and there's my background. No, that's a good. I was just going to say, when you are working in Publisher, the changes that you're making apply only to the page that you're on. Yeah, there are probably some things that I can do to all pages if I group them. Let me see actually if this will apply to all pages. No, see, it still only applies to the one. Exactly, yeah, you can make each page different if you want to. Yes, it's filling in the margins as well. Yep. All right, so now we gave it a nice background color. All right, so now what we want to do on the front of this card is, this is how we're going to build it. We want to do kind of a tile or like a mosaic. We want to have 3 pictures going left to right in a row. So basically one in the left margin, one in the center, and one in the right margin. And then we're going to repeat that pattern down the page for a total of 5 rows of 3 pictures each. Okay, and then on top of those pictures, we're going to layer another box that has the message of the card, come celebrate XYZ. So we're going to do the pictures first and then get to that message a bit later. Now, we need to fit these 3 pictures in a row. They can't be too big, and of course we don't want them to be too small either. So we're going to go ahead and let's insert our first picture. Now, remember, in Publisher, when we work with pictures, we can set the dimensions of the picture ahead of time. This is one of the big benefits of using Publisher. So let's go to our Insert tab, because this is where we go to insert objects like pictures. Now, in the illustrations group, we have pictures from file and online pictures. But we're going to use this one called picture placeholder. Go ahead and click on it. And it's just going to put up a frame onto your page. But of course, we can adjust it. Now, before we make our adjustments, let's quickly go over how we use objects no matter what Office program you're using. So when you're using objects like this, they come with their selection box or the boundaries, like we're seeing right now. Around that box, around that outline, are those little dots. Those are called sizing handles. If you point at any of those, you'll get a two-way arrow, and if you click and drag in any direction with that two-way arrow, you can resize the object. Okay, let me just put it back to the way it was for a second. If you point between the handles, you will get a four-way arrow. If you click and drag with the four-way arrow, you can move the object to a different location. Okay, last but not least, when working with objects, you will almost always get a contextual menu in your ribbon. Let me move this. So if you look up there, there's a special menu that was not there before called Picture Tools, and under that is a Format tab. Okay, it's called a contextual menu because if I click outside of the picture, or the placeholder, the menu goes away. If I click on it again, the menu comes back. So these are just special menus that are used for specific kinds of objects. And we're going to be using these contextual menus quite a bit throughout class. All right, so the first thing I should probably do is try to establish a good size for this. So let me get it into position first. I want it to be starting at the top. I want it to touch the top margin and the left margin perfectly. So I'm going to get my four-way arrow, click and drag, and move it into that corner. And you'll notice that the left and top margin will light up like so to indicate that you're touching them perfectly aligned onto those margins. All right, now of course, this size is not going to fit 3 wide, so I'm going to make it smaller. Now, whenever we resize objects, it's best to work from a corner handle and go in a diagonal direction because it's just faster and you'll maintain the aspect ratio so it doesn't get distorted. So I'm going to click and drag like this in a diagonal direction. Right about there looks pretty good, and I'll let go. Okay, now another thing to remember with objects, again, no matter what Office program you're using, you can always manually set the dimensions of that object in its respective tab in the ribbon. So in this Format tab to the right is the size group, height, and width. So I could just manually set it without having to necessarily click and drag. So if I know ahead of time exactly what I want it to be, I could just type into the boxes and it will just immediately conform to those dimensions. All right, so right now mine is 0.75 by 0.75. If you want to match mine, you can just type into the boxes, or you could leave yours as is. That's totally fine, as long as it looks like you're going to fit 3. Now, how are we going to know for sure that we're going to fit 3? Well, any thoughts on how I can do that? It's kind of a basic tool we could use. Good. We're going to copy the placeholder and then paste a duplicate because it's going to match the dimensions. All right. So if however you want to copy and paste is fine. There are several ways to do that. I'm going to use the ribbon just to stay consistent. I'm going to go up to my Home tab, go to the Clipboard group, and click on Copy. Again, I'm making sure the placeholder is selected, and then I'll click on Copy, and then just click right on Paste, and then you can move it to wherever it needs to go. Now, this one's going to go in the center, okay, that vertical ruler, and also touching the top margin like this. Again, I'm going to copy and paste for the third one. So I'll copy this one, paste, and put a third one to the right. This one's touching the top margin and the right margin. All right, now the height is that's a little more difficult to figure out if it's going to be too tall to fit 5 rows, but we'll come to that. We can fix that later if necessary. Actually, you know what? Let's do that right now. We could do that right now because it's actually not too hard. What we could do is this. We could use the the 3 we just created, we could just move them around to establish whether everything's going to fit. So if I take one and move it to the center first, okay, this vertical center, I'm making sure that that horizontal ruler and the left margin are lighting up as they are right now. Now I could take the third one, move it down to the bottom margin, bottom left, like so. So it appears to me that they will all fit, correct? Looks like it to me, by keeping this 0.75 height. Oops, sorry. Sometimes when you zoom it, let me click outside of that. That's gonna help. There we go. All right, so it looks to me like it will definitely fit. So I could even just take one and go like this. Yep, so we're gonna be good. Okay, so let me just undo to put it back. And we know everything's gonna fit now. So let me put these back to where they were. Again, this one's on the vertical ruler and the top margin. They're both lit up. And this one goes to the top margin and right margin. All right, everybody okay with that? Yeah, you know what it is? They're actually square. It's the screen resolution. Yeah. So yeah, for those of you watching virtually as well, if these look like rectangles on your screen, it's because of the screen resolution, potentially. Although you should probably be seeing my screen anyway, so it should be fine. But for those of you here in person, looking at the projector screen, it's because of the screen resolution. Everything's a little bit stretched out, so that's why it looks a little off. So that's a good point. Thanks for addressing that. All right, now after all this work, we should probably go ahead and save just so we don't lose anything. So let's go to our file menu real quick and let's go to save as. And we're gonna just save this. We don't want to save it in our OneDrive account. We'll save it to our PC. So let's just click on this PC and then browse. And it's gonna default to your Windows Documents folder, just like the other Office programs do. You could leave it there. I'm gonna put it in a folder that I have called Class Samples, but you could just leave it where it is. And then come down to File Name, and we'll just call it Publisher Practice. If you want to call it birthday card, whatever you want to call it is fine. And then click Save or press Enter, and now our work is saved. All right, so now let's go ahead and insert some pictures into these placeholders now that we have the dimensions set. So it's very simple. The placeholder, in the placeholder is that little icon. When you click on that, it allows you to insert a picture into it. So let's start with the one on the left here. All right, and it allows us to either select the picture saved on our computer if we go to from a file, a picture saved to our OneDrive account if we are signed in, but we're going to insert one from the internet by using the Bing image search. So click into that box there, or you could click right on Bing image search and use the other search box you'll get. It doesn't matter. And let's type in, let me just look at my sample here. Let's try birthday confetti. Your keywords are birthday space confetti, and then press enter to run your search. Now, one little tricky, one of the little tricky things about Publisher, especially with pictures, is that for some strange reason, you don't get a remove background tool. At least, let me just see, unless it's here, but I don't believe it exists in this program. Like we get that in Microsoft Word, for example. So, all right, let me go back, sorry. Birthday confetti. Okay, so a lot of these pictures have these white backgrounds. Now, sometimes the white background is part of the picture, which we don't want because we have a nice blue background. Okay, so sometimes it takes a bit of trial and error. You'll insert it. If it has the white background, we could just try something different. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. Let me just see what, is there any other options that I might like? That's all right. I'll just go with one of these. I'll go with this one here, and I'll click Insert. So just select your picture, click Insert. All right, I'm lucky there's no white background. If there was, all right, I think we're all okay. If you need to change your picture, in your special format tab above under picture tools, there's a tool in the adjust group called change picture. So you could just change it to just swap it out for something else. Okay, just keep in mind, if you use it, it's going to keep the original in your scratch area. So you have the original and the new one you just replaced it with. It just does that in case you want to experiment with different ideas. It keeps them automatically. In fact, you know what? I'll show you what that looks like so you can see. So if I change the picture to, let's say, this one, is that the one I used? No, this one, sorry. Okay, it's going to replace it, but keep the original in my scratch area automatically. Okay, oops. And when it does that, they're both selected. This can be a little bit tricky as well. So I need to just click outside of either of them to get rid of the selection. Okay, and then, so a couple things. I can either keep it here and save the file, and it will stay there, or I can delete it just by clicking on it and pressing delete on my keyboard. All right, there are a lot of benefits to being able to save things in your scratch area. For example, if you kind of create your own template in a way, let's say you're putting out a monthly newsletter, and each month you update the pictures with something that's seasonal, something specific to that month. You can keep all the, let's say, January stuff, March, February, March over here, and then when you get back to that month, just replace and move them back over. So you don't have to always go looking for new pictures every time. You could just save them all, have them ready, and then just swap them out when you need. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me just zoom back in here. So again, this picture looks fine. I'm going to leave that. Now, one more thing. Let me go back to that special format tab. Again, as you can see, pictures are a little bit tricky sometimes to work with. If it looks like the picture is kind of stretched out or kind of over, it's like if you're not seeing the entire picture, okay, that's because you need to kind of manually fit the picture into the placeholder. So if you're in that scenario, in fact, let me do something real quick here. Yes, okay, this one has that problem, good. So it looks like it is, but it's kind of not fitting perfectly. Okay, so it's a little bit cut off. So if I go up in that special format tab to the crop group, you'll see the fit tool. Click on fit and it will fit it. It will kind of center it into the placeholder. So make sure the picture's selected. Go up to your special format tab, go to the crop group over here and click on fit. All right, and then fill would be what it was before. That's fill and this is fit. I'm going to do a quick save to update my work. So I'll just click on the save disk up there in the quick access toolbar. You can also just go to file and click on save here. All right, so let's just do 2 more pictures and get them on there, and then we're gonna keep building from there. So again, we're gonna go to the next picture, the one in the middle here, click on the icon, go down to Big Image Search, go to the search box, and this time I'm gonna type in birthday cake. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Let me try that again. Birthday cake. All right, I'm just gonna try this one here. Let's see how it looks. Okay, I have a white background. I don't want that, so I'm gonna try a different one. So it's still selected. I'll go up to the Special Format tab. I'll go to the Adjust group, go to Change Picture, click on Change Picture, and try a different one. All right, good. No white background, but remember it saves the original in case I want to use it. So I'm just going to click outside since they're grouped together right now, and then only click on this one in my scratch area and press delete because I don't need it. And I'll do that for this confetti as well, just to get it out of the way. All right, last but not least, the third picture placeholder. Let's click into that, onto the icon. Let's go to our Bing image search, and this time look for birthday hat. And I'll try this one, the very first one it gives me. I'll click insert. Let's see how it looks. And no white background, so I'm good to go. So if you just want to use that same one, you can. Oh, and I forgot about the fit in case. So this one, sometimes, see, I have to go to crop first. Let me click outside of it and click on it again. Oh, you know why? Sorry, I'm being a dope because I don't have to fit it. It's fine the way it is. That's why it's not. That's why fit or fill, they're not lighting up because it's fine. That's why. I thought I had to fix it. Okay, so again, if it looks like it's not quite fitting, just click on fit up there in that special format tab in the crop group. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to continue this same pattern down the page. And of course, we're staying outside those margins. So let's first continue that pattern, and then we're going to create an alternating pattern after that. Now, let's use a tool that's not unique to Publisher. You're going to find this in other Office applications. Okay, whenever we work with objects, we're able to group them together as one object because it's going to be more time consuming if I have to copy and paste each one individually and then place them accordingly. So we can select multiple objects at the same time, group them together, and then just move it as one thing. So as you might know with a PC, when you want to select multiple items as a group, because if I click normally, it's going to unselect the one before it. All right, so we use our control key if we want to select multiple items. So select your first picture as normal, just click on it, then hold down your control key. While you're holding it down, click on the next picture. Still holding down the control key, click on the third picture, and then you let go of the control key. Now all three are selected. Now up in that Special Picture Tools Format tab, to the right, in the Arrange group, you have your Group tool. Click on Group. All right, and this is a great tool because it allows me to move it much faster if I want to relocate it. Okay, and perhaps more importantly, I'm not going to be messing up the nice even spacing between each individual object. Because if you move them individually, then you have to, again, make sure they're evenly spaced, all that kind of stuff. So it's a much faster and safer way to move objects around, especially when you want to do them as a group. You just group them together first and then make your adjustments. So let me just make sure this is accurately placed again. Okay, now you can still make some changes to them individually. I can't change the dimensions. I can't resize them. I can resize the group, but not each one individually, but I can change the pictures. We'll come to that in a second. First, select that group and let's copy and paste it. Go up to your clipboard group, click on copy. Again, in your home tab, clipboard group, click on copy, and then click on paste. And now I have that group. I'll place this one on that center, that vertical center here. I'm making sure that the vertical and horizontal ruler guides are both lighting up. And then I'll copy and paste again and place this one at the bottom margin. So the bottom margin is lighting up. Good. Oh, I put this one to the right a little bit? Sorry, I didn't see that. It should be, I must have clicked and dragged at the last second by accident. Let me see. There it goes. Good. All right, and now we'll just place the intervening rows. So just copy any one of those, doesn't matter. Any of those groups, I'll copy and paste. And this one, these we're just gonna kind of eyeball. Oops, let me get my four-way arrow, there we go. And I'm just making sure that if that vertical ruler guide is lighting up, that means it's centered. And that's what you want. Oops. And then I'll do the other row, copy, paste any of these groups and place this one. Again, making sure I'm touching that vertical ruler guide. And I'll do a quick save to update my publication. Let me just move this one down just a hair. You could always use your up and down arrows, by the way, to do things in smaller increments without clicking and dragging. So now we want to create, oh, and by the way, if you want, you don't have to, but just as a safeguard, again, now that we have this pattern perfectly spaced and aligned, what can you do next? You can then group the groups, right? If I select all 5 groups, I can then go back up to the Format tab here under Drawing Tools, click on Group, and now they're one big group. So if I move one, I move them all, and I don't mess anything up inadvertently. Okay, again, you don't have to, but just showing you that you can do that. You can group groups together. All right, so now we want to create an alternating pattern. So now we're going to use something called the swap tool. Okay, basically what I want to do is let's keep it simple. We're going to keep the birthday cake in the center all the way down. All we want to swap, every other row, we want to swap the hat and the confetti. Okay, So we'll use rows 2 and 4 to do that. So if I want to swap those two pictures, what do I need to do first? Select those two pictures. So again, we need to use our control key. So first, select your first picture as normal, just click on it. Then hold down the control key. Oh, and I'm sorry, because it's grouped, make sure you probably have to click on it once and then a second time, and look for those little dots, the black dots around it, okay? Then hold down your control key, click on the next picture, which in this case is the hat. So they should both be selected. Now, if you point at either picture, you'll see a little icon pops up. That's your swap tool. Click on that little arrow icon and you'll swap their locations. Now, the only thing is when you swap, sometimes the cropping gets messed up where we have to fit it again. So I need to go back to that confetti and go up to the Picture Tools Format tab and once again click Fit. I'm not sure why that gets undone, it just does when you swap. All right, so let's do the same thing to row 4. I'll click on the confetti first as normal. I'll hold down Control, click on the hat. So now those two are selected as a group. I'll go up to the Special Format tab under Picture Tools. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll click on the Swap tool first, excuse me. There we go. And then I'm going to unselect that group, click on only the confetti, like this, and then once again do a fit. The hat was fine, so I don't need to worry about it. Just so click outside of the group to undo that, and then click on just one. So first you have to click on both to do the swap, right? So click on one as normal. Click on it, okay, click on it a second time. Now I know what you're talking about. Click, there you go. And then hold down Control, click on the other picture. Do the swap. Beautiful. All right. Now, we're going to put a text box over the front of this for our message. Now, it's going to be a little bit tricky because, so we have a couple options. Either we could just fill in the text box with a white background, which would allow us to read the text because there's all these different colors behind it, right? Or what might look better is to adjust the transparency. So we kind of fade everything a little bit, tone it down so we could read the text in front of it. All right, so let's start with our pictures. So if you just click on that picture group, and if you haven't grouped all the groups, you'll have to do these by each group. But so just click on the group, and let's go up to our Picture Tools menu where we see that Format tab underneath the Picture Tools. All right. And we're going to go to the Adjust group. And in the Adjust group, we're going to click on, actually, I think it's in a couple places. Let me see. Yes, you can go actually to Corrections, and then down at the bottom, click on Picture Corrections Options. Again, that was in the Special Format tab under Picture Tools. To the left, go to the Adjust group, go to Corrections, and then go to Picture Corrections Options. All right, and we see that in this dialog box, in this Format Object dialog box, we do have a Picture tab that's already selected. So we go down to Transparency. Let's increase the transparency to about 50%. Let's see what that looks like. You could always click to get it exact or type right into the box. And then we're going to click OK. and it just fades them. You can still see them, but it fades them into the background a little more. And if you want to adjust the transparency for the background, whatever color you chose, you could do that as well by going to your page design tab, going back over to background, almost all the way to the right, opening up the more backgrounds dialog box down here. More backgrounds down at the bottom. And then again, there's a transparency tool here. So maybe I'll increase that. Maybe I'll just do this one to about 30%, see what that looks like, click OK. That's a little bit better. So just, again, tones it down a little bit. And if we need to make it further adjust it, we can always do that later. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in our message. So again, if we need text, we need to insert a text box. So let's go up to our Insert tab. All right. In the Insert tab, we have in the text group, Draw Text Box. So let's click on Draw Text Box. And you're going to notice your mouse pointer turns into this plus sign. With objects, sometimes we insert them, like in the case of pictures, where they just kind of appear once we click. Sometimes we draw them, which means that they don't show up right away. We have to actually kind of draw them ourselves. So that's what we see right now. That's the draw cursor. All right, so you can draw onto the page. You can, if you want to draw outside of the page first, that's fine, wherever you want to put it. So just kind of click and drag. And as you do that, you'll be, essentially what you're doing is just resizing the text box from nothing to something. And again, work diagonally, it will work a bit faster. And then if you want to click and drag and move it over to make sure it fits. All right, I'm going to look for that. Again, I want to make sure it's centered vertically and horizontally, so both of those center rulers should light up. There we go. And if I need to make it a little bit, okay, and then I'm going to go, and then I want to also make sure I'm touching the left and right margins. I don't want to go into the margins. So I could resize. I'll go to the left center handle, click and drag to the right until that left margin lights up, and do the same thing to this side. Oops, try that again. Oh, see, I still didn't get this just right. Let's try again. I keep my mouse keeps getting away from me today. All right, so I typed in "You're invited to Keith's 12th birthday party" with an exclamation point at the end. All right, now we want to, of course, adjust the font size. It's way too small. So what's one of the another little unique, tricky thing about Publisher is that we can't click on the text box itself and then adjust the font inside of it. We have to select the font, kind of like you do in Microsoft Word. So let's select the font like this, click and drag. And we could just use the font tools in our Home tab. So go up to the Home tab, go to the font group, and let's just kind of experiment. Go to font size here. That's 14, maybe, I think 20 looks pretty good. Of course, we could fix it, but 20 looks pretty good for now. Okay, now with text boxes in Publisher, you'll notice that up in there in the ribbon, you get two menus, drawing tools and text box tools. When you want to adjust the text in the text box, like the alignment, word art maybe, okay, and other features, we're going to use the text box tools menu. So go to that menu, click on that format tab under text box tools. Okay, and in the alignment group here, you can very quickly create an exact center vertically and horizontally by clicking on that option right here that says align center. Okay, if it's not fitting, just adjust the size of your text box so you see all of the text. So open it up, maybe top and bottom, go up and down. So go to the center top sizing handle or top center, click and drag up, go to the bottom center sizing handle, click and drag down so you see everything. Like this, up and down. And if you have text that you're not seeing, you'll probably notice that your sizing handles turn red. That's to indicate that there's more text in the box than the box can currently show in its current dimensions. So that means you just have to resize it. All right, and then if you want to change the font, you could either use just some basic tools from the Home tab, or you could always use word art like we see in Word and other Office programs. You could just quickly select the word art style. And I'll go to text fill and make it black so I can see that better. Let me try something a little bit different. Okay, now I'm gonna let me put this in bold font. I'm gonna go to the Home tab and select bold so it looks a little bit, there you go, that looks much better. Because like I said before, you could always mix and match. You don't have to use tools in those special format tabs. You could always use basic ones from the Home tab as well. Things like bold, italic, underline, line spacing as well, paragraph spacing. You could always use those from the regular Home tab. And then, of course, again, just like any other Office program, sometimes these things take a bit of trial and error. You might need to adjust the transparency a little more so you can still see the text, but I think mine looks okay. Maybe I'll just do the pictures a little bit really quick. I'm going to adjust the transparency just a little more, maybe to about 70%. Okay, that's much better. And usually on the printed copy, it looks a little better too. It kind of is a bit more legible than what it looks like on the screen. All right, now, and one more thing I want to point out with text boxes in Publisher is that whenever you type into a text box, will automatically hyphenate. Kind of like if we were writing on two pieces of paper, sometimes we hyphenate if we run out of room, right? I'll show you, let me put birthday here real quick just to show you what I mean. Actually, that's not a good example, is it? I'm surprised it's not actually, I'm actually kind of, let's see what happens if I just type in birthday. I guess because it has too much space to work with. Well, anyway, sometimes the lines will hyphenate automatically. If you don't want them to hyphenate and you just want to text wrap everything, so every word is shown fully on one line, okay, just in your text box tools menu in the format tab to the left in the text group, you'll see hyphenation. You'll click on that and you'll uncheck the box that says automatically hyphenate this story. And that will just get rid of the hyphenation if present. All right, so any questions about this front page? This was the most time consuming one. The remaining pages will be a bit faster. We'll move through them a bit quicker. Any questions on how we did anything here? All right, because again, this is kind of a mix of things you can do in other programs like Word. All right, it's in terms of copying and pasting pictures, grouping pictures, working with text boxes. A lot of these things are similar to other programs, but what are unique, or what is unique, are some of the things I've been addressing as we go through. All right, swapping, the scratch area, hyphenation. What else have we discussed? Placeholders. Okay, so a lot of these things are unique to Publisher. All right, so let's say our first page is done. Now we want to work on the inside of the card. So on the page navigation pane on the left, click on pages 2 and 3. Now, once again, we need to set up those pesky rulers, vertical and horizontal rulers for the center. Now with the 2-page spread like this, it's a little bit tricky because I can't use the same dimensions. Notice how the ruler's continuous. So what is, for example, this is 2 here, I have 7 over here. So like this center would be 2.125. This one would be 6.375 because that ruler is continuous. So to keep it a bit simpler and to use the same dimensions, let's separate these as 2 separate pages for now in our view. So to do that, all we have to do is right-click on that 2-page spread on the left and just change down at the bottom where it says View 2-page spread, click that to undo it, and you'll see each one individually on the screen. They're still going to be connected if you print. It's just how we're seeing it on the screen. Okay, you can, click on View 2-page spread to turn it off, and there you go. You can also do that in your View tab, where in the layout group where we see 2-page spread and single page. All right, so now we should all be on page 2. Make sure page 2 is selected, and let's set up those ruler guides real quick. Let's go to the Page Design tab. Let's go to the Page Setup group. I'm sorry, the Layout group. Click on Guides. Let's go down almost all the way to the bottom. Click on Ruler Guides. And then we have the 2 tabs, horizontal and vertical. Under horizontal, we're going to type in 2.75 and then click Set. And then we're going to go to the vertical tab, type in 2.125, click, and then click Set. And then click OK, and that page is done. And then we can let's quickly do page 3 just so it's done. We're not going to worry about page 4. Let's click on page 3 and do the same thing again. Page 3, Page Design tab, go to Guides, go to Ruler Guides. Under horizontal, 2.75, Set. Under vertical, 2.125, Set. And then click OK. All right, everybody okay? There we go. So I have this idea in my head. So again, we're on page 3 now. Let's all make sure we're on page 3 where we're going to put the message of the card with details. I have this vision in my head. I want to put a picture in the middle, and then I want to put the details above that picture. And if I need more space, I can put it underneath the picture. So first, let's put the picture onto the page. Once again, we can use our picture placeholder first to establish the dimensions. So let's go up to our Insert tab, and let's go to the Illustrations group, and let's click on Picture Placeholder. And it almost puts it right where it needs to go, but we have to move it a little bit. So both the vertical and the horizontal ruler guides light up. We know we're in the exact center of the page. And we can just leave the dimensions as is for now. If we need to make it bigger or smaller, we can fix it later. Now we're going to insert a picture, so click on the icon inside that frame. And sometimes mine takes a little bit of time. Let me close it and try again. There we go. Let's go to our Bing image search. And this time we're searching for a picture of birthday balloons. So try birthday balloons. Okay, just select the picture that you like. I'll try this one here. Oh, and actually I don't want that one. I'll just try this one. I'll click insert. All right, obviously I need to fit this one. So I'm going to go up to the, I'm in that special format tab under picture tools. I'll go over to the crop group and click on fit. Now, if this has a white background, it's okay. We're going to leave the inside of the card white, the background. So even if it has a white background, we're just going to leave it alone because we won't notice it anyway. But remember, if you replace it, if you change it, it will keep the original in your scratch area. And if you haven't, if you need to, remember, if you need to fit it into the placeholder, just go up to the crop group and click on fit. Yep. All right, now we want to put in our details. So let's go ahead and insert. What do we need for text? We need a text box, right? So I'm going to go up to the Insert tab again, go over to the Text group and click on Draw Text Box. And I'm going to draw a text box, and I'm just going to pretty much fill in the space above the picture, all right, without going into the margins, of course. So I'll just kind of open it up, click and drag like this, and then I'm going to let go. And I'm going to make sure that I'm touching, let's just to keep it simple, I'm going to make sure I'm touching the top, left, and right margins. So I'm just going to now resize up and down first to touch the top margin, resize this one left and right a little bit till I hit the left margin, and then the same thing to the right. And there we go. So notice what I'm doing. I'm going to the center sizing handle on the top, left, and right, and just clicking and dragging in that direction wherever I need to go to make sure I'm touching the margin. All right, now let's just pretend that right off the bat, this is size 10. I want it to be a little bit bigger. Size 10 is kind of small for a card, I guess. So before we even start typing, let's go up to the, you can either go to the font group in your text box tools menu or to the font group in the home tab. Either one, same thing, essentially. Okay. We're going to go to the font size, and let's just make it 12 for now. Just make it a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to start typing. All right. So it's going to say, you are invited to attend a party for Keith's 12th birthday, exclamation point. And notice that when you type into a text box, it's just like typing onto a Word document. You have text wrap. It wraps the lines down for you automatically. If you want to start a new paragraph in the text box, you can by pressing the Enter key. But we don't need to press the Enter key to start a new line necessarily. Text wrap will do it for us. All right, now I do want to start a new paragraph, so I'm going to press the Enter key. This paragraph is going to say, come join us as we celebrate with pizza, ice cream, games, music, and more, exclamation point. Now, we're gonna kind of do this. It's kind of unnecessary, but I'm trying to simulate something because I want to demonstrate a tool called link text boxes. I'm going to do an example in this exercise. I'm going to do another one that's separate from this, so you can get a better idea of how it works. So let's just, again, there's really no reason to do this, but let's close up that text box. I'm doing this on purpose. So go to the bottom center handle, get your two-way arrow, click and drag up, and close to that last line there, music and more, because I want us to purposely run out of space. Remember, we're not moving the text box, we're resizing. So go to the bottom center handle, get your two-way arrow, click and drag up. And if you moved it by accident, you could always undo by using the undo tool in your quick access toolbar. All right, so now we want to start a new paragraph, okay? So here's what we're going to do. Press the Enter key. Now you notice that your sizing handles turn red. That's because we have a new, we did in fact create a new line. It's technically there, but we can't see it. And that's what the red handles are telling us, that there's more in the text box. We need to resize it to see it. Now, without seeing it, just type in the word there, T-H-E-R-E. So now what we can do is this. We can create another text box underneath the picture and then connect the two so it's a continuous text box. So let's go up to our Insert tab and create a new text box. That's step one. So go to Insert, Text Group, click on Draw Text Box, and put another one under here. And again, I'm going to kind of like conform it to the margins as best I can. Now, let's go up to the text box above. On the right side, you see that little 3 dot icon that shows up? Okay. If you don't, click on that top text box again to select it. Just click anywhere on that text box, and then you'll see the little 3 dot icon. Click on that, and your pointer will turn into this little picture. Click on the text box down here, and you're going to link it. And that word that you just typed is going to show up there now. All right, so now this line is going to say there will also be a water balloon match, exclamation point. And remember, it's continuous. Okay, so it's kind of acting as one text box with something in between. So let me just show you one more example so you can to really kind of understand the benefit of doing this. So I've kind of created this myself. I'm going to put this away for 1 second here. Let's see where it went. It is somewhere on my desktop, I promise. I have a million things here. Here we go. Okay. So what I have here, this is something I use for the actual computer classes. Okay, I have a page with 2 text boxes. The left one has classes on it, all right? So if I want to add a class, I'm just going to type for a second. I don't need to worry about sort of, oh, I didn't link them, did I? What a dope. There we go. It just continues on. So if I need to delete or add classes, they'll just flow into the next one. So it works very nicely like that. So I don't have to worry about getting everything to fit perfectly into this one and then creating a second one and then getting everything to fit into that one. Because as I delete, it will just go either back into the first text box, or if I add more, it will just start filling up the second one as needed. Does that make sense? So I don't have to, it kind of saves me that work of having to create 2 separate text boxes with 2 separate blocks of text. I link them, and I just start typing, and then it just flows into the next one if I need it. Okay, or like, for example, if I'm trying to fit a class here, but I can't fit the full description in this text box, the description will just continue into the second one. So it just keeps going and going. Yes, so someone's asking, is the link text boxes tool in the ribbon? It is. I'll show you right now. Let me just get back to this. So in your text box tools contextual menu, in that format tab, right underneath you'll see create link. You could use that as well. Instead of using the little 3-dot trick I showed you, you can use create link instead. All right, so we may as well just finish up this text box. So we're still in the one underneath. Press enter again to start a new paragraph. And we're going to put in the details of the party. So date : space. We're just going to say, I'm just going to put in a random date here, August 13th, 2022. I'm going to press enter, where I'm going to put in time, : 3:00 p.m. I'll press enter again. Place, : 123 Party Ave, Funtown, New Jersey, 11111 is the zip code. Now I want to add one more line. It's not quite fitting, so we could fix this a few ways. We could either adjust the paragraph spacing, or maybe I'll just shrink the font size just for this portion for now. So I'm going to select these 3 lines, go to my home tab, make them 10. That way I can now fit a line underneath of that. Oh, you know why it's doing that? Because of the paragraph. See, it's still the paragraph spacing that's throwing it off. I could just make this. All right, so let's try something different. See, again, trial and error. I'm going to try adjusting my paragraph spacing now. Instead, I'm going to select these 3. I'm going to go to the home tab, to the paragraph group, go to line and paragraph spacing here, go down to line spacing options, and just make it 0 points after paragraphs. Now that next paragraph will fit. There we go. So again, to adjust line and paragraph spacing, it's just like doing it in Word. Select your text or select the lines and paragraphs that you want to adjust the spacing for. Go up to your Home tab to your paragraph group. This tool here is called line spacing. Click on the drop down, but go down and click on line spacing options. And in this dialog box where it says after paragraphs, that means spacing after your paragraphs. Change it from 6 to 0. Just erase what's there, type in a 0, and click OK. Now I'm going to press enter after that last paragraph, and here I'm going to type in please RSVP to Jane. Let me just see, am I going to be able to fit another line? No. Please RSVP. Let's just put it in here. Let's do this at 555-5555. We're just not going to put in an area code, and then we should, and we'll do this by aug period 6th period, just so we can make sure we fit it. I don't want to get too carried away with having to change all the spacing and all that kind of stuff. What's more important is that we're understanding the use of the objects and things like that. Now, if you want to center everything, I showed you how to do that before. Select our top text box, go to the text box tools menu, that special format tab underneath of it. Select the text inside of it. This is what's so weird about Publisher. You have to select the text. And then go to your alignment group here and click on the align center, which is vertical and horizontal center. If you want it to look like that. If you don't, you can leave it alone. And I'll do the same thing to the one underneath. I'll select the text here. I'll go up to my special text box tools menu, format tab, alignment group, align center. And of course, you could always, if you end up saving your work, if you want to take it home with you, you could always play around with the fonts. You can add borders to your text boxes. All right. You could do all sorts of things. Okay. Borders, if you are modifying the text box itself, not the text, but the text box, that would be handled under the drawing tools menu, where you see things like shape styles, if you want to give it an outline or fill it in with a color. Okay, all those kinds of things. Like something like this. All right, now let's go to page 2 real quick. This one's going to be very quick. Let's go to page 2. We're going to keep this one super simple. All we want to do here is put a picture, but we want the picture to kind of fill up the page. Okay, now I can't really do the page background technique because it's going to go into the margins, as we noted earlier. Okay, I want to keep it in the normal area. So what can I do? I could use a picture placeholder, conform it to the dimensions where my margins are, and then insert a picture. So let's go to Insert tab, Illustrations, Picture Placeholder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this in the corner, so I'm touching the top and left margins, and then I'll click and drag down in a downward right diagonal direction until I hit the right margin. And if it's not lighting up, just let go and then resize a little bit again until it lights up like this. And then I can go ahead and center it by pulling it down straight, making sure that the vertical and horizontal guides are both lighting up like so. So that's basically as big as I can make it at this point. I could click and drag straight up and down, but we'll just leave it like this. So remember, go to insert picture placeholder. If for some reason it disappeared, just insert a new one and just resize it. I'll click on the picture icon, and this one I'm going to type in birthday supplies. Let's see what we get. I don't want real life photos. I want pictures. Yeah, like pictures of things. I'm just going to type in birthday. Let's see what we get for that. Okay. Oh, this is actually perfect here. So I typed in birthday. I'll select this picture. I'll click insert. There it is. And it looks like I do have to fit it because fit is lit up in my ribbon. So I'll go up to the crop group and click on fit. And I'll do a quick save. Good job, Regina. It looks good. So just insert your picture. All right. Now we're going to do page 4 in 1 second, the back of the card. All right. I'm going to introduce you to one more little thing that we find in Publisher, kind of unique. And then we're going to be all set with our publication here, with our birthday card. Now, before we do that, I just want to mention one thing, and we don't really run into this problem in this class, but when we are using objects in Office, no matter what program it is, you often have to worry about layering them. In fact, we kind of saw that here actually with the text box. It was because when we're placing objects, we can layer them on top of each other, okay? So sometimes we have to manually change the layering. Okay, if I want a picture on top of this instead, for example, I have to change that around. So no matter what contextual menu you are in, whether it's picture tools, drawing tools, text box tools probably doesn't have it, but because it's text, but drawing tools, picture tools, all right, you'll have an arrange group, and in that arrange group, you have your bring forward and send backward tools. Those allow you to control the layering of your objects. Okay, and furthermore, if you click on bring forward, you'll see bring forward and bring to front. Bring to front brings it all the way to the fore. Let's say you have 3 or more layers. Bring forward is going to bring it one step at a time to the front, whereas bring to front brings it all the way to the front with one click. All right. Similarly with send backward, let's say I have 3 or 4 layers. Send backward would send it back one step at a time, each one layer at a time. Send to back would send it all the way to the furthest back layer with one click. All right, so just pointing that out, sometimes we need to manually control the layering of our objects so they're placed correctly. Does that make sense? All right, so let's go to page 4. All right, here's what we're going to do here. We're going to put a calendar that has the RCP date highlighted. And it's not as difficult as you think because let's go to our Insert tab. Publisher comes with a group called Building Blocks in its Insert tab, okay? These are kind of like specific objects for specific kinds of publications. They're already built. So if I'm putting together an advertisement or like a flyer, a sales flyer, I can go to the advertisement building blocks, and some of these are already built. Percentage off, I could change the percentage, but the formatting is done. So they're kind of like little templates for specific kinds of publications. So I don't have to build them myself. So one of the building blocks it offers is a calendar. So let's click on the calendars dropdown. And you can see it's already set up for this month. We have next month underneath. And then if we needed a different month, we could go down to more calendars and select the month and year we need. So let's go to more calendars. On the right side where it says select the month, let's put in August. And we'll leave the year at 2022. And then if you want to change the kind of calendar that it's using, the template, you can. I'm just going to leave it as is, and I'll click insert. All right. Now, without going into too much detail, this calendar was built using a table. Okay, tables, if you're not familiar, they're basically the same thing as spreadsheets. They are objects made up of vertical columns and horizontal rows, right? So each of these cells has, in this case, the days of the week, and then the actual number of dates in each cell of the table. That's how this was set up. I know that because if I look up here in the ribbon, it says Table Tools. Okay, and then the month and year, the title up here, that's just a regular text box. And strangely, mine's not fitting, which is weird because I didn't adjust it. So let me just fix that real quick. All right, now of course the calendar's too big. Let's resize it so it fits onto the page. So go up to one of your corner handles or down to one of your corner handles. Get your two-way arrow, click and drag in a diagonal direction. And I just want to make sure it's fitting onto the page. It's not going into the margin, so I still need to make it a little smaller. Okay, that looks good. And in this case, I'm just going to kind of eyeball the center, the vertical center. Now, of course, my font is not, the font size doesn't conform. When you use, oftentimes with text boxes and tables, the font size doesn't conform to the new size. We have to change it ourselves. So I'm going to select the month and year up here and make it much smaller. So I'm in my Home tab in the font size menu. Let's try 14. I'll just make it 12. There we go. And then the same thing for the table now. I'll just kind of click and drag and select every cell like this and change that font size probably to the same. Let's try 12. That looks good. So remember, if you want to change the font size for what's in the table, select your cells like this, click and drag. So you're shading them all in, and then adjust your font size. You want to make sure you're seeing the I beam. Looks like the letter I, my mouse pointer. When you see that I beam, then you're going to click and drag. All right, so now we're just going to shade in the RSVP date and the party date. So let's click into the cell that says 6, which is the RSVP date. Let's go up to our Table Tools menu, go to the Design tab under Table Tools. So Table Tools, click on the Design tab underneath of Table Tools. And in the Table Formats group right here, you'll see Fill. You could fill in that cell that you've selected with a color. So I'll click on the drop down and I'll make this one maybe like a light blue. And then I'll go to the 13th, which is the actual date of the party, and do the same thing, but choose a different color this time. All right, and another cool thing about building blocks is you can create your own and save them. So if you spend a lot of time creating something elaborate that you want to reuse over and over in future publications, you could save it as a building block and it will be accessible in your ribbon. So you can right click on it and select save as building block. So you could reuse it in other publications. All right, so for those of you attending virtually, if you have any questions, now would be a good time to direct them to the GoToMeeting chat. Otherwise, we'll go through a few closing remarks and then we'll be all. All right, so again, thank you for coming to Publisher today. This class was recorded and it will be available on our library's YouTube channel on our computer instruction playlist. To get there, go to mcl.org, our library website. Click on the YouTube icon at the top left of the homepage. That will then take you to our YouTube channel, and once you're there, select Playlists, and then select the Computer Instruction playlist. And that's where you'll see all of our class recordings. All right, for those of you here in person, you got the handout already. Also, for those of you attending virtually, again, there is that direct link to the handout that I sent in your email. If you need to get it again or find other handouts, they are on our website. Just go to mcl.org, click on Services from the main menu, and then select Technology Instruction, and then you'll find the handouts for each class a little bit further down the page. And as always, we hope you sign up for some more classes. We're just about done for March. The April classes are now available on our events page on our website. So you can always sign up yourself or see someone at your local branch and they'll sign you up at the desk. All right, so if you missed a class this month and you want to take it in April, or if you want to retake any classes, you're always welcome to do that as well. Go ahead and sign up. If you have any further questions about our technology instruction program, you can always send us an email to techclass@mcl.org. All right, for those of you attending virtually, if you have no further questions at this time, you can click the X at the top of the GoToMeeting window and then select Leave Meeting. If you are leaving, thanks so much for coming today, and we hope to see you again in class very soon. Take care.